My best friend passed away. Then, her mom drops a bomb on me, claiming my husband SA'd her. He fights back saying she actually SA'd him, and when the DNA test was revealed, it complicated everything. So I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute cluster F, and it only seems to be getting worse. So my best friend since elementary school, who I will call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom after she passed away, who I will call Alexis. Last month, Alexis showed up to our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him. To answer the inevitable, Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of as for why she didn't go for child support. And during this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had. So we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. And my husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter probably is his, but that it is not what I think. So, almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we had just moved into our dream home after I finally finished residency and was set to make real money for once. Alice, she was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there. I didn't get back until after 3 a.m. Party was winding down, my husband was passed out upstairs, and Alice had already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. Then my husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night with Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. Then he showed me some text messages he sent his best friend the next day asking for his advice about him thinking that someone SA'd him. But if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit at all. I don't know if that's because he cheated or if Alice actually did SA him and that was his trauma response, but honestly, Reddit, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children, and she had never come across as that kind of person, but I've also known my husband for over a decade, and he's not ever once given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy, and I've seen the looks that he gets at the gym, and he's never even given more than a glance. So what the hell should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone wanted to sleep with him. And I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test done before anything is decided on the child's part. But in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Then in the comments section, one user said,
OP, did Alice change behavior after that night or anything at all?
No, not that I noticed. She'd always been at least a little standoffish towards him as she thought I could do better. The first time she visited after she gave birth, she asked where he was since he wasn't home for the first time, but she never asked again after that. Then user 2 commented and said,
Obviously, DNA test. His story does sound wild, but he wouldn't be the first. Is he someone who tends to drink a lot at times or blacks out?
No, not at all. He rarely drinks and generally only at parties, which at our ages are few and far between. He works a tough and stressful job, so I figured once he was buzzed, he would lay down and fall asleep. Not that he had drank more than normal or anything like that. Then user 3 commented and said,
I don't know about you or your marriage, OP, but I think I would be inclined to believe and support my husband with the few details you've given. Also, last thing, do you think she'd take to the grave that she had an affair or she SA'd your husband?
So, I hadn't actually thought about that, thank you. That's a good point. She always thought I could do better than him, so if it wasn't a affair, you'd think she would have told me on her deathbed at least. Then user 4 said,
So, you say you don't think she would have been the type of person to SA your husband, but would she be the type of person to sleep with her best friend's husband consensually? As for your husband, the text message to his friend would have been deliberately crappy to send with the purpose just to save his ass in case you found out that they slept together consensually. So, is your husband the conniving type? Either way, I'm so sorry that you're going through this.
So, I don't know, and that's part of the problem, I guess. I went through everything with her, so to reconcile the woman I knew for most of my life with someone that would betray me in either way is so hard. And as for my husband, he's smart. Smarter than I am, which, not to sound conceited, it just means he is really smart. He does think tank type work as a contractor, so planning things is literally his job. If he ever thought he could get caught for cheating, I think he would be smart enough to cover his tracks. Then OP elaborated on who did Alice say the father was and said, So, she told me it was a man she met while in another state for work. a short-term fling. Then one user commented and said,
So, your husband went to bed while there were people in the house and a party was going on?
So, I know it seems odd, but everyone at the party were friends or family, the types of people that we would trust to house sit if need be, so him sleeping while the party winds down wasn't weird at the time. Then the next user commented and said,
So, why does he need to move out? Your friend S8'd him, and he even texted his friend the next day, and it's possible he didn't even realize it was your friend. You also only have her mom saying that it's his child. Your horrible friend did this. You should be supporting your husband.
Then OP replied in a now downvoted comment and said, So, I needed space to think. It's only temporary for a few days at most. I've been trying to think on this for the past 2 weeks, but it's impossible to do when he's here, as all I can see when I look at him is my best friend. Dealing with her death the first time was hard enough. Adding in the new feelings of betrayal if it was an affair, or betrayal and disgust if it was SA, are making it even harder. How am I supposed to work through that and also figure out if I believe my husband when those emotions are clouding my judgment? Then another user said,
OP, how did his friend respond to your husband's text message? And also, how did your husband react to Alice's death initially? Did his response seem normal or like what you would have expected? Honestly, I'd be inclined to believe your husband. Sending the text messages preemptively to cover his cheating seems like a stretch, and it makes more sense that they are genuine. I feel like faking everything else just implies an excess level of manipulation, and it sounds like you don't have a reason to believe he would do that. And also, him not telling you because he thought you wouldn't believe him sounds like it might not be an entirely incorrect judgment at this point.
So, regarding the text message, his friend asked for more details, but my husband didn't give any. Then, as to how he reacted when Alice died, I honestly don't know. I was going through a lot at the time, understandably. I didn't notice any changes in him. And as for the last part you said, I'm starting to feel that way too, and I think I might be a terrible wife. And then finally, one user said,
Women, they go decades without admitting when they are SA'd because of fear of people not believing them. I'm gonna be honest, men will go twice as long and preferably take it to the grave because almost always and automatically they are told it's not even possible for a man to be SA'd. I know you have to go on instinct, but his story makes sense with the text messages he sent his friend. He also would hope to never be around the woman he is sure SA'd him again, which is why he made himself scarce after the fact. If he's a smart man like you claim he would have not wanted you alone with Alice basically ever because she could reveal an affair. He would have tried to separate your bond. Instead, he hid because she couldn't really say she SA'd him. You say she wasn't a fan of his at all. She thought you could do better. So why wouldn't she spin it as he came on to her? It's because she was in the wrong.
Thank you. I don't know what it is about this part, but it just clicks with me. You're absolutely right. With her level of disdain, if it was an affair, she certainly would have told me only to separate us, especially on her deathbed. I was in the room with her, holding one of her hands. She obviously took this to her grave, and the only reason she would do so is if she SA'd him. Thank you. Edit. So, after talking with you, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend SA'd him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying, if only to separate us. You're absolutely right. I was there in the room while she passed away. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she SA'd my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gather my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated, it wouldn't do it justice. That it happened only 6 months ago, I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown onto me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and effed my husband, or she betrayed me and SA'd my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her, and be struck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. But it was wrong of me to ask him to leave. You're right. And as of a few minutes ago, I have righted this wrong. I called my husband, I apologized, I told him that I believe him, and I begged him to come home. He'll be here in half an hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been an off and on Reddit user for several years now, and sometimes the advice given on subreddits like this can be hit or miss. But today, you guys did good. You helped me realize that not only was I wrong in being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I can assure you we will deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend SA'd my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in my face right in front of me. She tortured the man I love, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. And tomorrow, I'm going to take a leave of absence from work just until we can figure out our next steps and we can get our heads on straight. Thank you, everyone. Update. So, I've received a lot of messages asking for an update, so I've decided to finally sit down and write one out. And as you can imagine, after the cluster F that was thrown upon us, this update isn't likely to answer any of your questions, but only present a few more. I want to start by telling all of you that I have love and trust for my husband. My reaction to ask him for space to think, in retrospect, was wrong, but at the time, I didn't know what to think. It was a combination of losing my best friend again, and also the fear that I was losing my husband. That sent me spiraling. Again, it was a mistake to ask him to leave, and I did rectify that in the end. Now for the update. As mentioned in the original post, I did take a leave of absence from work, and we spent a long time just being together, talking, reaffirming our love for one another, and figuring out what to do next. We also, of course, spoke with a lawyer, and my husband was very adamant about not having anything to do with the child, but was willing to offer financial support as needed. So we agreed to do a DNA test immediately to prove paternity, and then go from there. And didn't you know, you could buy tests on Amazon, but with only a few weeks processing, it was the easiest path forward, since Alexis lives hours away. And to everyone's surprise, Alice's daughter is not my husband. We ended up testing twice, both very, very definitive. The first test we performed ourselves as mentioned, and another after Alexis refused to believe the first test, and took my husband to court for child support. For a single second, this whole thing made me second guess if my husband was SA'd, that this could have been her way of forcing my husband to admit an affair. But after talking with Alexis, I don't think that was the plan. Alexis says that Alice told her my husband was the father under strict confidence, demanding that she never ever told me or my husband. We were only ever to be told if Alexis died before Alice's daughter was old enough to take care of herself, so that she wouldn't end up in foster care. And the only reason Alexis came to us then, instead of keeping that secret, is because Alice's life insurance wasn't being released yet, and she was out of options. She also felt I should know my husband and her daughter had an affair. So this all reaffirms in my mind that Alice did SA my husband, with the expectation of getting pregnant with his child. She obviously had other partners at the time, since one of them fathered her daughter, but no one knows who, and it's clear to me that Alice believed it was my husband. I did suggest Alexis upload a sample to Ancestry to see if any matches popped up, but as Alice traveled all over for work, I don't know that anything will ever come of that. In truth, I've washed my hands of the situation. Alice did enough damage, and I don't particularly plan to be around for any more. As for my husband and I, we have gone through a lot of counseling, and will likely continue for a while. This whole situation damaged us both, my husband more obviously, and I don't think we will fully heal for a long while. And to answer a few questions, no. Sadly, there isn't a hidden diary or text messages to explain what the F was going on. My husband and I are not getting divorced. He understands why I reacted the way I did, and has been strong when I was weak before. And I have spent the past 7 months being strong while he was weak. So we're considering the whole thing even, and we are still madly in love with each other, and plan to be together for a long time. Continuing, no, we will not be adopting Alice's child. If she had been my husband's, we would not have been adopting the child. And ultimately, though, I thank Reddit for setting me straight. There was a massive outpouring of support and corrective advice. To say I got a slap in the face would be a descriptive but apt way to put it. I needed it then, and I thank you for it. To say that you may have saved my marriage is an understatement. And I do, however, have some good news. During my leave of absence while my husband and I rediscovered what makes us love each other the most, I got pregnant, and we're expecting our first baby girl in a little over 3 months, and my husband and I are ecstatic. And no, we will not be naming her after my dead ex-best friend. So, I remember reading this story a good while ago, and I'm glad that there's an update on the matter, and I was like, hold on, what? He ain't even the daddy? Excuse me? What was Alice doing traveling, banging a guy in every state? You know, like, that sounds fun and adventurous, I guess, but also exhausting. And who wants to bang a guy or a woman from Indiana? Oh, God. I think I mentioned last time that I understand what OP was going through with her losing her friend, the revelation about her friend, the possibility of the cheating, and all of that internal turmoil, and I get that. I'm not gonna dunk on her or berate her, but also kicking the husband out.
was the wrong move. But you know what she did? She corrected that. She apologized. She and him are going to therapy, which I recommend like every other video. And I will always applaud people for wanting to do better. Now, hopefully they've washed their hands of this Alice business because she's doing numbers from the grave. And hopefully they can enjoy their new baby daughter. But anyway, guys, we're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!